Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in Sophomore English. We are in Poetry Collection number 3 of Unit number 4, our Poetry Unit in Sophomore English. We are focusing on poetic forms. I'm with you on page 671 really quickly. We're going to look at Tanka, a special 5-line unrhymed Japanese form of poetry that some of you are going to say some of the most remarkable stuff you've looked at. We're going to look at 2 of these offerings. The first one by Toshiyori, we'll be looking at the clustering clouds. Often these are not given titles, but they're just the first line. And the second is the Toshiyori, When I Went to Visit. We're going to look at both of these poems real quickly. But about both of them, we want to point out something really amazing on page 671. I hope you're reading with me on page 671, and I hope you're working now at level 2B with me. Notice that a tanka is a special kind of poetic form, 5 lines, as opposed to a sonnet, which is 14, or a vinalia, which is 19. Unrhymed Japanese form. Now, of course, we're working in translation, no doubt, unless you know your Japanese, where you get to enjoy these kinds of poems in the original, which is far better. The first and the third lines of tanka contain 5 syllables. The second, fourth, and fifth lines, 7 syllables. The number of syllables can vary when a tanka is obviously translated into English. Thus, the syllable pattern is 5-7, 5-7-7. For example, the flowing river, 5 syllables. Twists and turns and runs away, 7. Thinking of the sea, 5. Through the forests light and dark, 7. At last kissing salty waves, 7. The author's choice of form is related to the effect. Write this down. This is huge at 2B. The effect he or she wishes to create. The tanka's brief and concise structure, for example, helps the poet express a strong feeling, a powerful thought, or a focused image or idea. It is classic to say that along with, of course, haiku, we have a very similar idea going on here. We are trying to address a single powerful image. Write that down. That is to say, we are trying to show instead of tell. Try to show instead of tell. If, for example, in the above example, the poet concentrates on the river's journey through varied landscapes as it flows towards and empties into the ocean. All right, let's turn now. Let's meet both of these poets that we're going to look at for a second on page 675. Toshiyori, notice your dates. We're not real clear about it. 1055 to 1129, maybe. Japanese poet and critic. Rebelled against tradition and helped forge a new style in addition to writing poetry. Toshiyori judged poetry contests. And then our second of these poets, Tsurayuki, is one of the leading Japanese poets. Notice your dates here again. It's roughly 872 Common Era to 945. We don't really know a lot of time specifics. One of the leading Japanese poets, critics, and diarists of his time, in his preface to a major literary anthology, he said that, quote, "The poetry of Japan springs from the heart of man," which is a beautiful idea. Let's look at 2 of these examples. The way in which an image, a powerful image, can be constructed. We'll look at the first one, make a couple of observations, then we'll look at the second one. Let's go to work with it real quickly, okay?
Tanka by Minamoto no Toshiyori. Translated by Donald Keene. The clustering clouds. Can it be they wipe away the lunar shadows? Every time they clear a bit, the moonlight shines the brighter.
All right, let's pause. Before I say anything about these poems, I said that this is a poem that elicits to show instead of tell. So we're not looking for necessarily a message here as much as a powerful image here. What is the image for you? Write it down. What is the image that is described in this brief 5-line little poem? There in the opening lines, the clouds, the clustering clouds. And then notice the kind of almost like rhetorical question. Can it be they, the clouds, wipe away the lunar shadows? Every time they clear the clouds a bit, the moonlight shines the brighter. And some of you are maybe, have an image, a memory. Jump down to 3B really quickly. When was the last time you saw this? When the clouds were heavy, and then all of a sudden they moved away, and those moonbeams were coming all the way to the earth. Can you remember the last time that you saw this, and maybe were blown away by this? It made you pause for a moment. At 3A, you might want to mention the Wordsworth poem we're all familiar with. My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. That powerful feeling of emotion that you get when you look at something. At 2B, obviously, we've already commented this is Tanka. If you needed a 2A message or theme, it might be something like the beauty and the force, the power of nature, to move us in some way, to kind of make us see the world so differently. And finally, back to 3B, what is your feeling about the moonlight and walking at night maybe, and the clouds, and then the clouds leaving, and the full moon and the rays of the moonbeams coming? Why is that so beautiful to you, or can you remember a time in your life when that was powerful for you? Let's go to the second now of these Tanka. Again, they're powerful little poems, even though there's not a lot, right, that's involved in the lines.
Tanka by Ki no Tsurayuki, translated by Jeffrey Bonus. When I went to visit the girl I love so much, that winter night, the river blew so cold that the plovers were crying.
All right, so it's an interesting little poem that gives us a sense of a moment in time, right? What is it at level 1 that's being described here? Just write it down. What is it that's being described? Well, simple. It's the lover going to see his girl, right? The winter night, obviously, is a part of this one. And how stinking cold it was. So cold that these shorebirds with short tails and long pointed wings, they themselves were crying because it was so cold. At 2A, what is this poem for you really about? Some have said this is a really beautiful love poem. It captures the essence of what it's like, and if you've 3B, if you've ever been in love and you know this feeling, when you are really having a bummer day and you just want to be with the person you love the most. You'll do anything. You will go through, can we say it this way? You will go through any wretched winter cold to get to the person you love. At 2B, obviously again, Tanka, notice the power that's elicited in just the 5 lines, easily. At 3A, what is the text for you that speaks about the power of love and the willingness to go through everything? I mean, we'll always come back to Homer's Odyssey and the way in which Odysseus goes through 20 wretched years to get back to his Penelope. What is the text for you that plays that same game? And finally, at 3B, what's a time you went through a really, really rough situation to be with the person you love? Do you have one of those moments in your life when you went through some kind of hard situation because you wanted to be with the person you love the most, and it was all worth it in the end, or you endured some kind of wretched situation? Another obvious question is, when was it so cold that even the birds cried and didn't want to be outside? Jot down really quickly at 3A. When you're a senior, we're going to study a poem by Thomas Hardy called Darkling Thrush. And it's going to play the same similar kind of game. On a wretched cold day, the speaker of the poem is ready to quit and give up on life, and all of a sudden this old bird starts singing and gives him some hope. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed just a brief introduction to Tanka and the ways in which this Japanese poetry can capture powerful emotions in just a few words. Thank you.